Welcome to AMVA. I'm Kyle, and today we're interviewing Davey Jarrell. He's been an animator, writer, director, and voice actor for the short film Just Say No. Done some camera work for the CGI short Mosquito, The Bite of Passage. And he's done storyboards for the Season 3 episode Brokeback Saturn of Supermansion. Great work, by the way. Fan of the show.
Supermansion?
Yep.
Oh, thank you. You looked at my IMDb, didn't you? I'm very impressed.
Thank you. Now, Davey, what inspired you to become an animator?
I grew up watching cartoons on Nickelodeon when I was little. Mostly SpongeBob. SpongeBob came out when I was in kindergarten, and I was completely obsessed, and I just watched it every day. Saw every episode probably 100 times. And when I was like 11 or 12 years old, they started running older Nickelodeon cartoons on a channel called Nicktoons Network. And I watched a show called Ren and Stimpy. And there was one episode of that called Stimpy's Invention, where Stimpy feels bad for Ren because he's so sad and angry all the time, and he makes Ren a happy helmet and forces it on him so he'll be happy. And just the animation, the drawings, and the humor in that, and as soon as I saw that cartoon, I thought, oh, this is what I think I want to do with my life.
All right. So, have you worked with anyone who's on the autistic spectrum?
Yeah, I'd say so. Also, when I was a kid, I was actually diagnosed to be on the spectrum. I was diagnosed with Asperger's, and yeah. So I don't. It's hard to say how that has. Like what role or like to what degree that has contributed to my life. I know that people expect working professionals to have like a certain level of, to be at a like certain like social level, but luckily for people in animation or game design or related fields, there are a lot of jobs where you just do your craft. Like the communication is very minimal, and as long as you're surrounded by people who have your back, there's no reason that you shouldn't be able to do the job. I don't know if you guys have seen the Book of Life or the Nickelodeon show El Tigre.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. So.
Yeah, that show.
The guy who created that show and directed that movie, Jorge Gutierrez, he's an incredible artist and director. There was an article about him on Cartoon Brew a few weeks ago, and he came out saying that he was diagnosed with autism.
Wow.
And I was impressed to see that too. I thought that was very inspiring.
What is the most important thing you've learned about animation in your experience?
Like the most important thing I've learned, you'd say?
Yeah.
I think the first thing that comes to mind is when this is applicable to really anything creative. The first thing that comes to mind when you're creating something is usually not going to be your best idea. Mm-hmm. And you'll want to keep exploring, keep playing with it until you find the best way to do something. So like when I'm given, like when I'm storyboarding, like you're given a script and you need to essentially like turn it into a comic book. You need to draw it all out. And so you know you need to get from point A to point B in the script. And so there are an infinite number of ways to do that. So you don't want to just settle for whatever works. You want to, put it into words. What is the scene trying to accomplish? And figure out, well, what is the best, and in most cases, what is the funniest way to get there?
So, what was it like working with a camera for a CGI short in Mosquito: The Bite of Passage? I imagine it's quite different from a physical camera.
Yes. That was a friend of mine, a fellow student at USC, was producing that film. It was, I don't know if you've seen it, but it was an animation live-action hybrid. Really cool. Probably one of most technically ambitious student films I've ever seen. And he's now working at Sony Pictures as a storyboard artist. So operating the camera for that, I just wanted to help. I was way out of my element. I didn't know what I was doing. I just did exactly what I was told. I don't really remember anything about the technicalities of it, so sorry, I can't really give a more in-depth answer than that.
So, are there any creators in the fields that you've worked in, creators you haven't worked with yet that you might want to someday?
Yeah, there's several. I'd really love the chance to work with Joe Murray, who, I don't know if you guys know him, but he works on the second floor in the other, the building right next door. So I don't know if you guys have seen him around. He created Rocko's Modern Life and Camp Laszlo, and most recently Luna Around the World for PBS, and that's what he's doing right now. I love his work. He's always been one of my favorite artists and animators, and I've gotten to know him a little bit working in this building, and he's a tremendously nice guy. I would love the chance to work with him one day.
Well, so in your experience as an actor, writer, director, you have done many things. Which field would you say you enjoy the most?
This is a lame answer, but I probably like them all equally. I think every one of them helps inform the other. So I don't even really think of them as different things. All we're really doing is telling a story. But I know that acting has definitely informed writing and storyboarding, because when you're storyboarding, animating, you're bringing characters to life. If you don't know what life is like, if you don't know how to do that, then how do you know what to draw? So being able to do it physically is definitely helpful. You don't have to be able to do that, but I have definitely found it helpful. And I think acting also informs writing, because again, when you're writing what characters should be doing, and if you've never done something, it's much harder to imagine. When you do the step that comes after the step that you do before, you have a better understanding of how to take advantage of what that part of the process has to offer. And same with directing. I think directing is kind of a difficult task if you haven't done the other parts of the process before. I've only ever directed my own personal projects. I'm not like a director in any TV series. I want more experience in more parts of the industry before I do that.
Is there any advice you would give to people trying to break out into the fields that you've worked in?
Sure. I think it's helpful to set very specific goals. It's like if you say you want to work in animation, great, that's a good first step. But then there's, like you guys know, there's so many different departments and different jobs within animation. And if you're going to get hired on something, if you're going to get hired on a production, a big production, you're going to be asked to do one part of the process. And you have to be able to do that part of the process pretty well and pretty fast. And so it's great to be a generalist. When you're applying for jobs, you want to make sure you hone down on a specific skill set and make sure you can do that to the best of your abilities. And that's what'll get you hired and keep you hired. So that's something that they didn't really teach us at school very well. They taught us animation, they taught us the principles, but they didn't teach us about the business. So that's something that myself and a lot of our classmates, we had to kind of figure out on our own, how to gear our portfolios to specific jobs. So I decided that storyboarding combined the parts of the process that I like the best, so that's what I went for.
All right. Well, for my final question, is there any advice you would give to people trying to break out into the fields that you've worked in?
Sure. I think it's helpful to set very specific goals. It's like if you say you want to work in animation, great, that's a good first step. But then there's, like you guys know, there's so many different departments and different jobs within animation. And if you're going to get hired on something, if you're going to get hired on a production, a big production, you're going to be asked to do one part of the process. And you have to be able to do that part of the process pretty well and pretty fast. And so it's great to be a generalist. When you're applying for jobs, you want to make sure you hone down on a specific skill set and make sure you can do that to the best of your abilities. And that's what'll get you hired and keep you hired. So that's something that they didn't really teach us at school very well. They taught us animation, they taught us the principles, but they didn't teach us about the business. So that's something that myself and a lot of our classmates, we had to kind of figure out on our own, how to gear our portfolios to specific jobs. So I decided that storyboarding combined the parts of the process that I like the best, so that's what I went for. So then my first job out of school was on Superman.
Well, Davey, I would like to thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.